Hey, it's Don, the auction professor here. Today we're going to give you another bolo. Today we're going to talk about coffee cans. When I was younger, my parents actually stored stuff in coffee cans, as most people did, because containers to store things in were expensive. You couldn't just go down to the store and get a bunch of containers. Coffee was expensive as well back then, and they actually came in a fairly tight container that did protect it from moisture, because you did not want the coffee to get moist as well, too. So this is an item that you can find pretty much anywhere at a garage sale, flea market, estate sales for sure, a barn sale, auctions, church sales, even at the thrift store. I have found some good coffee cans. Many times you can find them in the barn, in the attic, the garage for sure. When you're at a garage sale, always look around on the shelves. And we find them at estate sales especially, even in the cabinets still. Sometimes you can get lucky and find some that aren't opened. Some of the earlier cans with better graphics can go for a few $1,000s for one empty can of coffee. We're going to show you some right now. So here we are with the first coffee can I ever remember seeing in my entire life. I was at my grandmother's house, and she had almost this exact same can, and she used to keep candy in it for us, for me and my brother. And I finally remember reaching into this can right here. It's from the local area. These do show up. I have found them in all different conditions, different varieties, different styles that span a 40 or 50 year time frame of making these items here in the city. Wolfson Spice Company, they were one of the biggest ones in the country at the time. This one went for $202. Condition is important, but some of these earlier ones, regardless of rust or some loss to the design, will still sell. This is a fairly popular one. Most of these actually have it printed on the can. Some are paper labels. The paper labels are the newer ones. It's not a gigantic category, but again, you will find these pretty much everywhere. Many times you might go to a sale and they may not even priced it, thinking that at the end of the day they're just going to discard as just some junky tin, but they still do sell. Now, ones that people might think that wouldn't be worth much and they don't mess with them too much are ones from like grocery stores. This is from Publix grocery store. These sell very well because most people didn't save this variety as much. They were a generic brand. They weren't as popular. Most people didn't save this exact one. So these do go for some good money. $610. Plus, at this time when this was actually made, Publix was a small chain. They weren't as big as they are nowadays. So $610 on this one. Folgers, another example. This is a rare Folgers. One thing I can tell you on these bigger cans, this is 5 pounds, is the steel cut coffee. That label on something can help increase the value on it. If I see steel cut, I know it's early. You can also tell by the construction of the can. Now, this is closed like a spice container for the most part. 1910, 1920s, probably some in that range. Some of the earlier ones with caps that slide on, which we'll show you too, are even earlier than that. There's pails, there's all kinds of varieties. This one went for $511. Now this is Lotus Coffee. This is a very scarce one. It has the lid. Now the lid has some issues. Now to open these you needed to destroy part of the label. It had a key that you had to turn to unwrap part of the metal that held the coffee shut. This one, almost $800 for this one. Nice graphics, has the metallic gold coloring ink to it as well too, and it's steel cut also. Now steel cut is just the process that they used to grind these up, and they use steel blades. It's basically a coffee grinder with fancier blades, I guess you could say. Now here's another one. This is Polar King. It has a paper label and a spice top style lid. These are meant obviously to keep the water out. Now these wouldn't be something that would store pretty much, so you won't find as many of these type. And this is also, say, circa 1910-20s, when we're exploring the North and South Pole, and exploration was a big, huge factor in what was going on in the everyday age. So this one's a really nice one. $450 basically on this one. Next one here is Turkey Brand. Now this is an earlier one. This might date to the 1890s, circa 1900-1905 range. You can tell that by the actual lid. It's the top type. It actually raises up off the top of the can, and you'd actually be able to screw down a lid on top of it. It's all there. The lid's there as well, too. Sometimes you'll find these lids just sitting around, and believe it or not, just these lids will sell. No can, as long as you can identify it. Usually the word steel cut, as I said, is a key factor in IDing these. This one went for $380. Here's Diamond brand. It's a pail. It has a handle. Any ones with handles pretty much are worth something. So if they have handles on them, even if they're not in the greatest condition, I will still invest in them. Diamond brand made a ton of different stuff. There's Diamond brands that aren't connected in most major cities. It was a popular name back then when the diamond trade was just starting off. It made it sound better, more important. $316. If you notice, too, the amount of bids, this one got 19 bids. Here's another one. It's a pail, 1920s-ish, maybe 30s, by the artwork on here. It's a newer style, deco almost. It's been a staple for decades, maybe even 102 years, to drink coffee in the morning. So graphics are awesome on this. Very few issues with it whatsoever. Most people can deal with the tin. It's not really rusted. It gets a patina on it. So anyway, $301, 24 bids. Now this would be one of those areas, if you couldn't find any comps, to almost exclusively put these up as auctions. Start them all off high, like $150, and go from there and see what happens. Now if it's one that there's 10 or so up, or you've got a bunch to look at, I'd bid them higher than the ones that sold and be done with it. $304. Now here is a big boy restaurant one, Mocha Boy. Came from the restaurant. It's a perfect example of industrial ones from restaurants. Sometimes these can go for more because most restaurants didn't hang on to these. They discarded them in the garbage at the end of the shift. So $300 for this one. On this one you can see as well where the actual key took off the metal, and you can see where it's missing that little strip there. I think I have one at the end here that I'll show you that has the key still attached. Now the next one is Red Star. This isn't a derogatory remark at the time. They were trying to market it as something unique, as like an import item. So that's what the deal is with this one here. It was actually made in Wisconsin. There's a few different ones like this as well too. They don't all have the sickle and hammer on them, but this one's probably one of the better versions. Even in the condition it's in, it still went for $300. Next one's Pilot Knob. It's for a geological feature. It's from Richmond, Virginia. A lot of these southern ones do go for some good money. It's a little bit newer, say 30s, maybe even into the 40s. Bauer Brothers did international shipping, so you can find these across the country. You notice the top on this one, it actually has a flat top. Now, those are a little newer. That's another way to tell. And then where the bail, the actual handle connects, is a little different than some of the earlier ones. So those are factors in dating some of these as well. Next one here. Now, this one is in 1890s, maybe even as early as 1880s on this one. The graphics aren't the greatest. It's just wording. It's not a great company. Most of the Chicago ones were big, giant companies, so there's tons of products that still float around like this. So they don't go for as much. It's got some wear. It should have been gilt and shiny, and some of that's dulled off as well, too. So that's part of the factors. The top is actually dented or pushed in it because it's tilted to the side also. So $228, still a nice can, but again, it's not as popular as the more graphical ones. Most people collect these, are big coffee fanatics, or they're into advertising in general, or maybe they're building a general store in their basement for like a man cave or something along that line. Next one here is from Mr. Donut. This is from one of the donut shops. Again, another example of restaurant, hotel type of material. These go because of that. Again, most of these didn't survive at all. You'd have far better chance on one you bought at the grocery store of like a Folgers or something surviving than one that was only sold from or used from a specific store. It's just not something you would see. Some of these may have been actually sold in local stores near possibly a Mr. Donut, but I doubt it. $222 on this one. Steel City brand, Pennsylvania, PA, steel cut. It's an earlier one now. I know it has a similar lid, but it's a different style of construction on these. And if I show you the top, yeah, a lot of times these lids will have steel cut. In fact, this one might as well, just kind of buried in there, embossed on the actual lid also. This one's from the 20s, I would guess, maybe 1910 at the very earliest. I really would guess 20s, but it has some wear issues. The finish is even dulled on this one. You can wax these up, and they will improve the quality a little bit as well, too. $204, 21 bids. And the last one I saved here is one that is sealed. Now, if this was a regular Maxwell House opened, it wouldn't have been worth but $5 or $10 at the best. So the sealed aspect on this is the best part of this. It's an NOS. Now, if some of the other ones I showed you were NOS, they could go for $1,000 or better. Sometimes these show up at auctions, estate sales, and barn sales. So those are key areas to look for these. And I always check out cabinets wherever I go. Many times someone may see this and just think it's a modern can without looking at it closely. Now there's the key. You stick it on the edge over there and it'll roll down this little strip where you see right where the word new is, right through the middle of that. That's the area that this key is going to rip open. It will actually rip off a piece of metal from this can, and then it will officially be opened. The lid will snap back on and off too. You can't stick the part on that you've actually used the key to take off. So once they're open, the graphics are damaged to some extent, but that's usually what you are going to find. In this condition, 11 bids and $161. Again, most people use these containers to store stuff. The wife may have actually stored spools of thread, buttons. Who knows what else was stored in these items? Some people on the larger cans used to store flour in them when they couldn't afford like a canister set. This was like a country-style canister, I guess you could say to some extent. So they were widely found still even to this day. And the husband would take these in the garage and store nuts and bolts and things like that in them. That's why these still show up. And in many times the condition is really good because they've been in a garage. They've been out of the elements. The lid's still attached. You know, the graphics on the outside kept it protected as well too. Well, there you go. That's what I have. Hopefully that gave you some ideas on this topic. Hopefully you enjoyed the video. If you did, please hit that like button down below. You can also hit the bell icon to be notified if I post new content or go live. Subscribe and tell a friend.